Hi, Carrie.
Good morning.
How are you?
I am well. How are you?
I'm good. But I heard something yesterday, and I really wanted to get your opinion on it.
All right. Hit me.
Okay, so this was the statement I heard. I heard that when kids are in their 20s, their early 20s, they should have everything figured out. What do you think about that one when I say that to you?
Laughing like wouldn't that be nice?
It would be nice.
Yeah, it'd be really nice.
Did you have
So
things figured out in your early 20s? I'm just
no,
saying, like, out of
none of
college.
so here's the I have a 22 and a 25-year-old,
Yeah.
and I would never expect that they have everything figured out. I do hope that they are starting to live more independently and making their own choices about where their lives are going to go. But I would never assume that they have it figured out or have the answers right now. But looking back, like when I was that age, I don't think that I thought about it as much as I feel like as parents of
Yeah, that's
we're
a good
spending so
point.
much time and energy thinking about it and talking about it when you're that age, I don't know, I didn't. I
Right.
just kind of acted. Graduated college, I got a job. I wasn't putting so much emphasis on like thoughts and feelings, which is funny coming from me because I'm a very thoughtful, emotional,
Sure.
feeling type of person. So I don't know why I didn't do it.
I feel like it has a lot to do with that time in our lives, your early 20s. I mean, think about it. You're not thinking at that point long term. You're thinking, I just graduated college. You're looking for a job, whatever that might be. Sometimes it's in your major, sometimes it's not. Where am I gonna live? I feel like it's such a transitional age. So many things are changing for young 20-something-year-olds, and I cannot even fathom having it figured out, my air quotes over there,
Yeah.
for those who are listening. I can't even fathom having it figured out by then.
Well,
Listen,
the question is, what does even figured
what
out
right, what does it
mean?
mean?
Like, what does
And
that
I
even mean?
and I feel like for any of us, it's constantly changing. I'm not doing the same thing I was doing when I was in my early 20s. Lonnie, my husband, he had a complete career change in his 40s. So I don't, I guess first we'd have to think about, what does that even mean? Have it all figured out.
It's interesting that you bring that up about Lonnie switching his career because it just like brought me back. So, well, I graduated with a psychology degree and I went to my mom after I graduated talking about, well, next steps and just kind of bouncing ideas off of her. So I was thinking, well, what do I do with a psychology degree? Because certainly having the degree in college, I didn't have a plan. Like, what was I going to do with it?
Mhm.
Because going to college, I switched my major. I wanted actually going into college, I wanted to be an optometrist.
Okay.
And while I was there, organic chemistry and physics
Oh,
didn't
the
like
weeding
see
out classes.
eye to eye. So there
Yep.
went that career. So
The
psychology
big
it was.
nemesis.
But when I graduated, I had a conversation with my mom. She was in education, and I was like, oh, I looked into this graduate program to be a guidance counselor. And she's like, no, no, no. And I'm like, what do you mean, no, no, no? And she said, it's not going to be what you think, because I must have shared my idea of why I wanted to do it, right? I wanted to work in a school, I wanted to help counsel students and work with students. And she's like, it's not going to be what you think it's going to be being in
Right.
education all these years. It's very administrative. You're going to be dealing with test scores and testing. And so I didn't actually give it too much thought. I just took it for her word. She was in the, closer to the field than I was. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll go look for a job. And that was it. Like, I don't remember it being like nights and days and hours of like analyzing and
And
overanalyze. Like,
conversation
it
about what am
just,
I gonna do, and
right.
so it's funny because I had a similar experience and went the opposite. I'm not I went the opposite. My parents were the opposite of what your mom said. I always wanted to be a psychologist. And if you asked me today what my dream job would be if I had to do it all over again, I just loved psychology. But my parents sat me down and they said to me, well, what are you going to do with that? You can't do anything with psychology unless you go on for your master's, and we're not paying for grad school. So you're going to have to get a job and support yourself. And why don't you look at education? You're great with kids. And I said, okay. What did I know? I didn't know from anything. So I said, okay, I took a couple of education classes, got my degree in teaching, my master's in special ed, and I taught for 10 years. So, and here I am today, not teaching and not practicing psychology, but trying to help as many people as I can. So,
Right.
you
And
know,
that's actually ironic that like here we are together
yeah,
and brought together. Our mission really is to want to help people in whatever and in the careers that we chose, even though
right,
they weren't the original ones,
right. How we
and we're
started.
still in that pursuit. So to answer this myth, right, we're in our 50s and we
We
still
still
don't exactly have it figured out.
we still don't
So
have it figured out. So how could we
um
expect
yeah.
our 20-something-year-olds to have it figured out?
So there's no truth in the statement our 20s have to have it figured out by that time. Like there
I
should be
think
no expectation.
if we were going to turn that myth around into a truth, I think it would read more like, I hope that in their 20s, they are on their way to living successful, independent lives rather than have it all figured out. Just work on being independent.
Right. Independent and making your own choices. Looking back at what we did, like I don't know that either one of us in that statement in terms of our career, like I mean, we did make our own choice by seeking out the job we wanted, but was it really our own choice to choose that career, or was it heavily influenced by our parents? So, a lesson for us,
Sure.
and I can say for me, I know for you, we are not doing that with our own children.
Well, funny enough, because it came time, was always a theater kid and she had a passion. And because of what my parents said to me and how I reacted, I did the complete opposite with Avery and said, if this is your passion, pursue it. See where you land from it, how lucky you are to have something that you love, and see what you can build from there. And we got from older generations, oh, you can't build a career in theater. It's so hard to make it as an artist. But my response to them was always, she has something she loves. You have no idea where that's going to take her. No, but none of us do. None of us can even imagine what opportunities there are out there for her because of her background.
It feels like we should be encouraging them to follow their passions and to take risks and try the things that they believe, are their career path or are part of their journey, because they have the time.
Right.
This is the exploration time. So
Yeah.
for me, it feels like the 20s, instead of, oh, they need to have it all figured out, it's the exploration time.
I
Go
like that. The exploration time. Yep.
go find your passion and do what you think you really want to do.
Right.
So, all right.
And maybe be able to support yourself
Yes,
while
of
doing
course.
that.
Of course. It comes with independent living or paying your bills and other things. It's not like a free for all go, at least in my mind, it's not a free for all go travel for 2 years and then wake up
Right.
one day and go get a job. But
Agreed.
I feel like the level of their independent living should be happening in
Yeah.
that period of time.
On the same page there. Those are our young 20s, our young 20-year-olds, our young emerging adults. What about when we have
By the way, I love that term. Emerging
emerging adults?
adults.
I wish I could take
I wish we
credit
would
for
have
it,
created it. I know.
but the name escapes me of who actually did coin that phrase?
Yes, there is a doctor who did
Coin that
coin.
phrase, and we give him credit.
Yeah,
So
we give
if
him
you
credit.
know who you are,
Yeah.
kudos to you.
Yes. Thank you.
Um, what about when we hear people say, "My child's 18, I can't make them do anything."
Yeah, I hear that a lot, and it's on a lot of the Facebook groups I'm into. Parents saying, "Well, I can't make them. They're now 18." Well, this is what I have a lot to say about this
All right, let's
because
hear.
so what? Unless your child is 18, no longer living in your house, or you are no longer providing financial or emotional support for them,
Mhm.
they're not really adults. Like,
Right.
okay,
It's
so they can vote,
right.
they can go in the military. But if they are still living at home and working a job, or they're away at college and you are fully funding it, yes, they can, as an 18-year-old, make decisions for themselves on a daily basis. Yet you still, as the parent, have influence because you are still supporting them both financially and emotionally. And yes, there's a difference between like telling them what to do and controlling them and controlling their outcomes versus loving and supporting and providing some guidance. But I don't think that we should ever feel like we have no say whatsoever. We can't make them. Now, you probably couldn't even make them when they were 12, right? Like eventually they're going to
Right.
have to like be in charge of their own actions and behaviors. But we have a lot more influence during those years than we think. And I think what it comes down to, like some of these parents, I'll just give an example. If anyone follows Grown and Flown, there'll be a parent that'll come on and say, my child is 19 years old, not motivated to do anything but stay in their room and play video games.
Mhm.
But help, I don't know what to do as the parent. It's super frustrating. I don't know how to motivate them. But what could I do? They're 19. Well, there's a lot you can do.
Right.
I get it. You're super frustrated as the parent, are kind of at a loss ourselves as the parent, and have to do some education to figure out how we can go about best supporting them. But you do have a say because they live with you.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that you are on them 24/7. Wake up, go look for jobs. Did you go to therapy? They have to have a buy in, but obviously you've made it really comfortable for them to not have to do the things. And that's part of some of the reason why they're not doing the things that they need to be doing to start to move forward,
Hmm.
because we haven't maybe set the boundaries of what our expectations are when you come back and live at home and you're, let's say, of age, to really support and live on your own. They need the boundaries. They need the guidelines, and for you to kind of set down what the rules are for you to come back and live in the house for whatever period of time. Like it,
What if
you
what
know,
if they haven't even left the house yet though? Let's say they're 18 years old and oh, let's say they're home all day. I cannot make them do anything else. I can't. They're 18 years old. What am I going to do? I can't make them stop playing video games. They're not even in college yet. They're still in high school.
well, I'm assuming that you're paying for internet.
Yep.
Okay. Well, then you get to decide when you turn the internet off at night. So
Right.
let's say you've asked your child a number of times, you said, these are the rules in our house. At 11 p.m., all devices go off. They're
Right.
charging not in your room or somewhere else, right? To try to, like, I guess what happens is we step into this role where like trying to take control. But I don't think that's what we're doing. I think we're really trying to establish some rules and boundaries because we would love for our child to start developing some healthy routines.
Right.
And gaming all night and then either sleeping through class or not going to school or being late all the time, those are unhealthy routines that are starting to get formed. And I think, like, as parents, that's what we're trying to influence.
Right.
So in that situation, what I would do is I would turn off the internet. You do have the authority because, again, you're paying for this type of stuff. But I think what happens is parents don't want to do it because they think the problem's going to get worse. The relationship with their child is going to get worse. And they don't want to be the bad guy.
So I think a couple of things. If we're going to turn around that myth of my child is 18, I can't make them do anything, I think it has to start way earlier than 18. I think it has to start with boundaries, open lines of communications, and clear expectations that you've discussed as a family. This isn't just, okay, my child turns 18. Let me tell them what I expect of them. I feel like it's an ongoing thing from the time they're young, your boundaries, expectations, and theirs too, of what they expect, what their expectations for themselves are based around your family values. I mean, this is something that I don't think they turn 18 and they say, okay, I expect this, this, and this. I mean, these should be built upon from the time they're young and from the time you establish these boundaries and expectations. There are those words again, from the time they're young. So at 18, it's not something new.
Right.
They know that in your house, devices are done at 11 o'clock. It shouldn't be something new and shouldn't be something that's coming out of left field because they turn this arbitrary number of 18 and you think that they're automatically an adult. If you're going to take that number 18 because you turned 18, I can do this, this, and this. I'm going to tell you that, well, you can't do this, this, and this with the car that I'm paying for, or the insurance that I'm paying, or the Wi-Fi that I'm providing you, or the phone bill that I'm paying. If you really think that you are an adult and can do all these things on your own, these are the responsibilities you're going to have to take over. Tell me what your plan is to get there. Well, and as we know from our good friend Mel Robbins, you can't make them change.
No.
Only you can change.
Yes.
And then hopefully your modeling for your children causes them to shift or change in some way or another.
Yeah.
I also think this is something else that just came up for me while we're having this conversation about parents holding their boundaries when kids are younger. I think it's also okay to say to your kid, you know what? I know I told you this. Let's rethink it because I feel like I acted in a harsh, impulsive way. I feel like if we talk about this, maybe we can come up with a different consequence for what happened. It's okay to change your mind as a parent.
Yeah.
We're human. And it's not like you're necessarily reneging, but you can say, I've been thinking a lot about how I reacted and I'm not happy with my impulsivity and how I came out with what I told you was your consequence.
Yeah. I think that's a really, really good point. I actually really love that because sometimes we say things in the heat of the moment when we're trying to regain control of the situation. And then when we think about it later, when we're in a more calm state, I think that's an amazing point to make and a good skill to be able to, parents go back and revisit now that you're calm.
Right.
Try again.
Yep.
Try
It's
again.
okay to say I made a mistake. It's okay to say I'm sorry. That wasn't what I meant. It's okay to say I was making a decision from a very emotional standpoint and let's have a redo together. What a more peaceful world we could be living in if we all followed that. I'm so sorry. I made a mistake. Can we talk about this? So
This leads me into another potential myth. If I give too much freedom to my children, they're going to make bad choices. So, is that fact
So
or fiction?
here's
Like,
here's this is interesting.
true or
So
false? What is it?
I think our job as parents is to continuously build on the freedoms and the autonomy that we're giving to our children so that when it comes time to be independent, that it's not like, what do I do with all this? How do I make all these choices? I don't know. My college kid calling me, how do I like my steak cooked? If we're building on these freedoms, these pieces of independence, they don't get to a place of adulting and they're completely shocked, shell shocked with all this new freedom that they have. And I think it goes into, again, laying the foundations, building the communication with your kids. I know there were times Avery was a theater kid. There were cast parties at the end of the plays. And as a freshman, as a sophomore, 15, 16 years old, she's going to be at these parties. And we knew that there would most likely be alcohol there. So we had to sit down and have a conversation with her about what the potential possibilities could be for alcohol to be at the party. And we told her it's okay to walk around with a cup in your hand. Nobody needs to know what's in there. And just walk around with a cup in your hand with the soda or whatever it is you're comfortable with. So we weren't telling her, no, you couldn't go to the party. We were giving her the freedom to go and to make the choice to go and to find a way for her to be comfortable with the choices that she wanted to make because she wanted to be there. I should say she was not comfortable with having alcohol at that point, but we were not taking away the freedom for her to go to the party.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. But I believe that there would be parents who would come from a more fearful position. Like, I don't know if my kid is ready to make the right choice, or they'll be highly influenced, and or they want to, I know that they want to be drinking at this age. And so they might say no because they don't trust their child yet, or their child hasn't earned the trust to go and make the right decision without being influenced by other peers. Our children are going to make bad choices. This is a part of growing up, and they have to be able to make the bad choices to be able to learn. And so there could be some growth, and that helps the communication. If your child always did the right thing and made the right choices, then they're kind of missing a little bit on what they learned through failure.
Yes. The only thing I will say to that is, along with the freedom of making these new choices, I think, again, they need to know what your expectations are and possibly what the consequence will be for these
For
poor
these
choices or mistakes or whatever it is beforehand, not just, oh, you did this, so now this is going to happen. Let them know what your expectations are.
We, start giving freedoms in small doses. And as they've built trust, you can either you hand out the trust and you assume they're trustworthy and you take it away if they prove otherwise.
Right.
Or you do the other, like each parent is going to be different with this. Each family is going to be different, right? Do I start giving little independences, little things, and they're earning trust and I'm giving more and I'm giving more? It's up to each family, but that's how, and there's a lot of confidence that is built on the child's part when you give trust.
Right.
And you do trust them and you give these independences.
That's
Right?
a
Like,
great point.
I
Yep.
mean, Imagine if you're the child and you're saying, the parent's saying to you, oh, I don't trust that when you go to this party, you're going to be able to make a good choice. And
Right. You're
I know you're
already
going to
setting
get
them up with a negative
right.
experience
Like,
in their mind.
imagine how
All
they,
right, my parent doesn't trust me anyway,
no,
so
I might as well.
right,
Or, I'm going to show them, like, I'm
right.
going to do what I want to do. But I don't know. Again, I think some of that just comes from our fear and our insecurities as the parent. Either it's what we experienced when we were that age and we're
Yep.
expecting they're going to have the same experience, or we just are trying to control it because we don't want them to get hurt and we don't want them to make a wrong choice. But
So if we turn that myth around, if I give my child too much freedom, they're going to make poor choices. I think the truth to that, what we can say is if you begin by giving your child trust and freedoms, it builds their confidence to know what the right choices will be to make. And let's not forget the most important part of what you said. They're still children. They're going
yeah,
to make mistakes. We all have made those mistakes as kids. We have all made poor choices. Let's give them the grace of knowing that you're there to support them, knowing what your expectations are of them so that they're not afraid to tell you when they've made a bad choice.
exactly. All right. So I think this brings us to the end of we kind of talked about teenage young adult myths. We would
Yeah, so
love to hear from you if there's
yeah,
any others out there that
definitely curious about that.
you've
What are
heard.
some things our listeners have heard that
Yeah.
they either agree with or don't agree with?
Yes.
Let us know.
Let us know. Always you can reach out info@parentcoachesunleashed.com and follow us both on Instagram and TikTok to hear some of our exciting episodes coming out in the future. Have a
Thanks for
good
being
day.
with us today.